Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie. For those of you who are new, my husband and I are documenting our journey through IVF, our first pregnancy, and now with our first baby, our marriage, our faith, and just wanted to say thank you for clicking on this video and just following along on our journey. And for all of the subscribers, thank you so much for being patient and sticking around while I took some time off to just soak up time with my little one. Again, I will try and get videos out every week. Still kind of playing that by ear, but I just wanted to also bring you guys postpartum recovery so far. I am currently at the end of week 7 right now, so everything that I tell you will be up to that point. Now I do want to say, like, I'm going to do a separate video on my breastfeeding journey through these so many weeks, because there's a lot that kind of coincides, but then there's a lot that's different, and if I put them both together, this video would have been like an hour long. So let's get into my postpartum recovery. Got little man on his nap, so I've got his little monitor right here, and we're gonna go as fast as we can so that we take advantage of nap time. So for the most part, for me, postpartum recovery physically has been very easy. Emotionally, not so much. These last 7 weeks have brought a lot of heartache, and lots of stuff has just happened, and so that's where it has just taken its toll on me the most. And we kind of joke around and say, you know, I had a really easy pregnancy. Labor was super easy for me. You know, I have no experience to go on, but for me, I thought it was pretty easy. And this 4th trimester postpartum is just, it has kicked my rear through and through. So we joke that, you know, I'm paying for it now. One thing I wanted to mention is whenever we got, you know, had labor and we had him, we did immediate skin to skin. I do want to just mention this because I will be very adamant about it going forward in our next pregnancy. And that is making sure that you get skin to skin for your husband. Along the way, like once, you know, I had the first hour, just me and Matthew. And then once we got to, you know, trying to do it with my husband, it was constantly being interrupted. People were coming in to do something or check him or whatnot. And we should have said something and spoken up, but I didn't. And I will be very adamant about that next time, that my husband gets skin to skin just like I did. So if you are newly pregnant or you're getting ready to have your baby, that would be a suggestion that I would have in your plan or your wish list, as I refer to it in one of the other videos. But just make sure that you are the voice for your husband and that he gets just as much time as you did. So once we got up to our room, we had like an ice storm going on here in Texas the day that we actually delivered. And so my husband ran out, and I'd gotten up there like after lunchtime. So he ran out and got me some lunch from Chicken Salad Chick, which is one of my favorites. And it was very light, and that's kind of what I wanted, just because I wasn't sure how I would handle, you know, coming out of hormones and all that. So luckily I did not have heartburn. That was one of the things I had said in one of my last updates was, you know, if you guys have already had a baby and you had heartburn, how long did it take before it went away? Immediate. I can tell you, for me, it was immediate. I have not had heartburn at all as soon as I had him. Also, one thing that one of my old bosses had told me is that after she had her epidural, she needed, or somebody had told her to drink a soda, Coke, Dr. Pepper, whatever. And so I had my husband get me a Dr. Pepper, and like fully loaded, no diet, no nothing like that. And it was supposed to help with the epidural headaches if you got them. So I had a Dr. Pepper, and I didn't end up with a headache or anything like that from the epidural. So I'll just stick with that and do it again next time. So if you have not ever heard that, I don't know if it's true, but that's what I heard, so that's what we did. The rest of that day, we rested a lot, did lots of skin to skin. Again, I did it, and then my husband was trying to do it, and just came in to check on us several times. They were checking to make sure, you know, my bleeding was okay, checking a little man all the time. And like hormones were just all over the place, and they have started immediately. Like I would just look over at him if my husband was holding him or whatnot, and I would just start crying. And not because I was sad, just because I was so happy, and just happy that he was here, he was healthy, labor was okay, and he was just perfect in our eyes, and he's just beautiful and wonderful. And I would just bawl for no reason, just because I was just so happy. All right, so we are back. Got little man here. He is napping because he does not like to nap anywhere else. He's just not a fan. So if you are already a mom and you have already had one, I'm looking for all the tips on how to get this one to enjoy nap time. Because right now I joke and say that he has just a strong case of FOMO, And I tell him all the time, I'm like, it's just me and you, buddy. Like, there's nothing fun going on in this house without you. So just don't worry, you're not going to miss anything. The second night was much worse. I did finally get a shower, felt amazing, but this little one did not sleep very well. So apparently my husband looked it up, and that is a thing where newborns, once they're born, I guess the adrenaline has worn off, and they are now fully, or just aware that they are no longer inside mommy's tummy, and it's a whole new world. And so that second night was just rough. Lots and lots of crying, and me and my husband just going, oh my God, what do we do? So second night, definitely rough. And then we actually got to go home the next day. So on that Friday, we got to go home. So one thing to note is that I did immediately start taking a stool softener inside the hospital. They were prescribing me one, I guess, or every twice a day they would bring me one. And they would ask if I needed any other medicine. I never took anything else, ibuprofen, whatever, anything. I just never took it. I never felt I needed it. So that was the only thing I was taking. I do recommend that though. If your hospital does not automatically do it, make sure that that's something that is in your hospital bag so that you can start taking that as soon as you're, out of recovery and you're ready to go. So that first, ladies, we all know that we're all scared of that first poop, right? So just gonna put it out there. So mine was Saturday night, like a late feeding. All of a sudden I had that urge, and I was like, oh God. And I told my husband, I was like, oh gosh, it's time. Like, oh my gosh, I was so nervous. And thankfully, because I was taking those stool softeners and I continued taking them once we got home, it was absolutely no big deal for me anyways. I can't speak for everybody, but for me it wasn't a big deal because everything, we had those stool softeners in my body and it was just ready to go. So not a big deal as what I thought. So just definitely recommend getting those in your system as soon as possible. And also while I was in the hospital, I was using the ice packs that they give you. I used those for the first 2 days. I think I stopped using them Friday night. One of the doctors from my practice had come in and I asked her if I should still use them, and she said, unless you just really need them, she said, no, I wouldn't, because once you continue with ice after so long, then it starts delaying the healing process. So, and I was doing fine, so I just stopped using them. I did bring the rest of them home, so I'll show that to you in probably the next video of all of my postpartum must-haves and stuff that I used. So back to Friday. So Friday we came home. Friday and Saturday night, two of the worst nights ever for this little guy. And let me just say, it was totally a first-time mom rookie mistake. So hopefully you can just laugh with me, at me, whatever. But we put him to sleep Friday night, and I didn't think about the fact that, they swaddle them in the hospital. But he didn't have any clothes on, so I just, in my head, I was just assuming that's why they swaddled him, because they didn't have any clothes on. And we didn't put clothes on him until we were leaving. So, terrible night's sleep on Friday. Saturday, I think my husband walked around our house for 5 hours with him, just trying to get him to calm down and go to sleep. And then I was up the other time with him. And I texted a couple of my friends and I was like, oh my gosh, this kid will not sleep. And she was like, well, are you swaddling him? And I was like, no. She's like, Stephanie, you have to swaddle him. That startle reflex is too big for them. And I was like, oh. So, again, rookie mom mistake. Make sure you keep swaddling your babies because that startle reflex is really strong and is definitely still strong with him. So we started using neither one of us were very good at swaddling. So we used the Halo sleep sack, and that just worked for us, and he likes it, so that's what we've been in ever since then. Going back, my bleeding wasn't terrible. I used the hospital pads that they gave you. I took the rest of them home because I paid for them anyways. So I brought home all of them and I used all of those up, and then I just used I think the Always ones after that, and I stopped bleeding to where I needed something like that after about 3 weeks. And then I just started using little panty liners after that, just in case I spotted. This is something else that I had no idea about, and I finally had to start looking it up. So around night 5, I started waking up just drenched in sweat. And apparently postpartum night sweats is totally a thing. So I did it for probably 5 nights in a row. So I finally had told my husband that I was waking up, just covered in sweat, and that that was apparently a thing. And speaking of sleeping, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was losing my mind, and apparently there are lots of other moms that do the same thing. But I would, in those first like 2 to 3 weeks, I woke up so many times at night thinking that I had gotten him out of his bassinet and I was like holding him, smothering him, or that I had just, so many times I would stand up. My husband would be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I don't know. So many times. I can't even count on like two hands how many times that this has happened. But what was crazy about it is that sometimes it would take me like several minutes to wake up enough to focus and realize like what I was doing and that everything was fine. And it's very weird feeling to just be so disoriented and so out of it, thinking that it felt so real, like I was actually holding him in my arms and he was never anywhere like close to me. So here's where all of the emotional drama starts coming in and starts really like playing a big part of this. So right at the start of week 2 for me, so day 8, my grandpa passed away. And that was just a little rough because we are 5 hours away from where that grandpa lives, and all of my family was going to be going there to be with everybody. And I wasn't ready to travel that far with him or take him and be around that many people. And so it was just very hard to just be here by ourselves, knowing that I have all of my family and we can't be there with them. So that was hard. And on day 10, I knew something was wrong because, like I had said, I had those night sweats from like days 5 through 10. Except for like on that 10th night, I woke up and I was freezing. And going from one extreme to the next, I was like, something's wrong. So in one of those night feedings, I got up and I had taken my temperature and I was running a low fever. It was like 99.6, I think. I took some Tylenol at the next feeding because he's pretty clockwork, wakes up every like 3 hours. The next time, woke up and I checked it again and it had gotten up to, I think it was 100.8 or maybe it was 101. But it was definitely higher and not lower. And so I went ahead and called the doctor in the morning, let them know what was going on. And they asked me if my boobs were hurting. And I said, no. I said, other than the headache that I have, nothing else, is going on. So they said it was probably just a really early infection of my uterus. They called and got me on some antibiotics, and after that, everything was fine. So weeks 4 and 5 kind of go together, and I will talk about them again when I talk about breastfeeding because there's a lot that coincides right here. So in week 4, another rookie mom mistake, I didn't think about the fact that what I eat still impacts him. And so we had all night or all week at night for dinner, we had like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts and all of the veggies that they say not to eat because will cause newborns to have like really, make them really gassy and fussy. And it literally took me until Friday night before I realized, oh my God, I am totally doing this to him. So I was also sick this week. My mom, thank God, was here and was helping me take care of him while my husband was working. And so, yeah, it was just a miserable week. And then just on top of that, the mom guilt that I felt for constantly like feeding him, giving him my milk and all of that when I had no clue that what I was doing was causing him all of the pain that he had. But trying frantically to figure out what we could do to help him and doing like the gripe water and the Milacon and just anything we could do to try and help this poor little guy. It just broke my heart. And then just, like I said, the guilt knowing that I had been causing him that pain just made it even worse. We supplemented with formula for a couple of days just to make sure that everything that I had been eating was out of my system, and he was much happier for that, and I was much happier knowing that I wasn't hurting him anymore. So I did have some milk froze, or some milk in the fridge from in that time, and so we just froze everything. I marked it all special and just said like save for later, because once he's a little bit older and his stomach can handle it a little bit better, we'll use that milk. but it's just all marked now so that we know not to use that anytime soon. And in week 5, again, this goes with breastfeeding as well, but in week 5, I also started running a fever again, and this one I never could get it to break. I started running a fever on Tuesday. It got up to 100.4, so I called my OB. They had me come in. I was diagnosed with mastitis, and they gave me some antibiotics and sent me home, told me all the things to do to try and help, and my fever never broke, never went down. It only got worse. So by Thursday, I was up to 103.8 at the house, called my OB back, and they sent me to the ER to make sure that I did not have an abscess in my breast. And they told me to pack a bag because if I did, they were going to admit me into the hospital, which just sent me over the edge because I'm already sick and again, my mom was here, thank God, helping me take care of Matthew. And just the thought of being separated from him and not being in the same house just tore me apart. I think I took a shower and I just sobbed the entire time, just being so scared that I was going to be without him. And so my husband met me at the ER, and at that point I was up to 104.4 fever, scared my husband to death, and thankfully they did all of the tests. I did not have an abscess in my breast, so I was able to come home, thank God. But yes, I did have several clogged ducts in my breast, and again, we will talk about that in the future, but that was what was causing all of my problems. So they switched up my antibiotic, got me on something new. So then we roll into week 6, and because of the new antibiotic that I was on Friday of week 6, I noticed that the back of my arms had started breaking out in hives. But I noticed that they were on the back of my arms, and then as the day wore on, I just noticed they were like creeping down my arms, into my like hands, and then it started getting up into my chest. By the end of the day, it was my entire body, like neck down, all the way down to my ankles, completely covered in hives. It was miserable. And so I called my OB to ask if I could take anything, because if you look online, it says not to take Benadryl because it'll dry up your supply. And so I called, and that's what they said to take was Benadryl. And they were like, just don't take more than the recommended dose and up your intake of water. So I chose to just take 1 Benadryl in the morning and 1 Benadryl at night. Also for the fact that Benadryl will knock me completely out. And so I didn't want to take any extra, I was just taking 1, like I said, that way I could still hopefully not crash too hard and still be able to take care of him. So that took almost an entire week to finally get rid of all of the hives and for my body to like go back to normal. That was super fun. And then in week 7, so this is, like I said, I'm at the very end of week 7, and in week 7, my little dog had gotten sick in the end of week 6, and you guys have seen her walking around in some of the videos, and unfortunately I lost her over the weekend. And that's just been super hard because she was with me for almost 13 years and she was just my first baby. I mean, I treated her just like a child because I'm such a dog lover and I feel like they should be, spoiled rotten and just treated like one of the family, and she definitely was. And so that was hard because it wasn't expected. She was 12 years old, but she was so, she was still very lively, and so it was very hard. So the emotional part of that is still very fresh, and there's still days where, like today, just talking about it makes me cry because I just miss her. So postpartum has been very emotional for me more than anything, more than the physical pieces of it. It's just been more emotionally draining, and I just feel wiped out completely just because of that. But I feel like some of that isn't talked about as much, and so I just wanted to, again, just share my side, share my story. That way, if you're going through this, or if you ever do in the future, and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm the only one. I hope some symptom or something that has happened to me happens, if it does happen to you, that you're not the only one and you're not alone. So this one went a little bit longer. I apologize, but thank you for watching. If you have any questions about, anything that I went through, please drop them below. Let me know. I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. But I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Click that little subscribe button. Feel free to share it with any of your new mamas that are about to have a baby, or that are trying to conceive and all that kind of stuff. So again, if I can be praying for you guys, drop those down below as well. I love to pray for you guys. I will hopefully talk to you guys next week with a new video, probably going to be about my postpartum, like I said, what things I had used, what I think are extra, all that kind of stuff. So I will talk to you guys soon. Have a wonderful week. Take care and God bless.